large portion of their life to the lives of a gang-stalking group that they supposedly discovered, infiltrated, and acted amongst these perps, and acted as a gang stalker themselves, and then proceeded to document all of their findings.
Who are we?
We drive the ambulances
that take you to the emergency room.
When your house is burning, we put out the fire.
We are security guards. We protect you at night.
You only have electricity, phone, and cable service.
Because of us.
We are the janitors.
We have the keys.
We fix your cars. You don't want to mess with us.
We are like the police.
Except we are above the police.
Private investigator and author David Lawson would spend an estimated 12 years of his life researching gang stalkers, primarily during the 1990s. He would conduct his investigations in the United States and in Canada, and yet his writings seem to be almost completely ignored by all parties. I mean, this man supposedly broke the Matrix here. He cracked the code. He broke into the secret club and documented evidence. 12 years of it. This should be every chosen one's holiday, birthday, and Bible. So, why does no one talk about it?
Date now on Bumble.
You mad?
David would break down his documentation into two categories: what was witnessed and his thoughts following the experiments. And immediately, I can begin to understand why, perhaps, victims don't credit or cite his books. I should really just say book, as in one book, because he actually stopped printing Terrorist Stalking in America and updated it to Cause Stalking. So, it's technically the same book. Anyway, as I was saying, David actually states that gang stalkers are pinned from terrorist and anti-government establishments, a concept that is wildly in contrast to a lot of gang stalker conspiracies. A lot of victims believe they're targeted from corporations and militant figures, but David already goes against this. He reports even further that these victims are based around blatant white lies. The gang actually believes they're doing good for the community, whether the community is a small town or an entire city, all because they've been told that the victim has a vast criminal record, oftentimes citing that the victim is a child. This answers, to put it simply, why the victims are attacked. These gangs genuinely believe that they're doing the right thing, a vigilante group rather than a terrorist group. Okay, but why are they chosen in the first place? David conjures this up to multitudes of reasons. First, being the obvious. You're a whistleblower, you know too much, or you are too loud of an activist. Therefore, you get followed and stalked as punishment. But he also speculates that a victim could be, maybe, next in line for a wealthy inheritance, whether it being financial gain, acres of land, or a new house. Unfortunately, David also states that some victims are merely chosen as practice, a conspiracy theory that many victims do believe to this day, which may only fuel their claims of being quote-unquote studied. David claims that he interviewed all who were involved, from stalkers to targeted individuals to the local authorities, who, surprisingly, actually play a part in both ends. I won't go into every single interview because, well, there's a lot, and I have so much more to get into. City employees can be used to harass a target in many ways, including tearing up the road in front of a target's home. Employees of pest control businesses who have access to the keys for apartments, and those who work for alarm and locksmith companies are also of interest. Surveillance is conducted 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. When a target leaves his residence, they will alert the group, either by cell phone or by business band radio. Other members who are patrolling the perimeter to watch for police and other vehicles driving in the area will race to the location to begin pursuit. If the target flushes a toilet, He may hear a car horn, the sound of a power tool, or hammering, for example. Entry will likely be gained through a member of the janitorial staff, pest control, or alarm technician, since they all have a right to enter. They may even be able to approach a landlord and gain his cooperation after convincing him of their quote-unquote higher purpose. He may also cooperate out of fear. Okay, these are some wild claims, but how did David Lawson even become a gang stalker? Well, rather easily, he says. In his book, he talks about how he got involved from just hearing about activity from a scanner. He said his scanner picked up on a random woman reporting that she was now following a vehicle, and she listed off the car model and the license plate number. And sure enough, later that week, David would hear the same woman over a scanner report on different vehicles numerous times. Eventually, on the same frequency, he would hear murmurs about grabbing a bite to eat at a nearby restaurant. So, he packed up his things, and David headed out. Once he was there, he states that he found the group openly discussing various activities as if they were the police, and that the real police were also in the same vicinity as all of them. David would discover that these groups shared an AM radio station where they broadcasted conspiracies to other willing listeners, discussing things such as Waco or Ruby Ridge. They called it Hate Radio, and with this new radio station, David would tune in regularly and discover coordinates to a local group meetup. At the first meeting I attended, one young man flashed a phony police badge at me. No one paid any attention. Some of those in attendance were the people I had seen in the local restaurant. This was my introduction to the creepy world of anti-government extremists. An ironic twist, isn't it? The people nowadays who claim they're targeted individuals often share anti-government extremist views, but back in the 90s, it was the extremists who were doing the targeting. That shouldn't come as too surprising, I guess, as even David himself quotes that the Klan developed their own systematic abuse to silence any crimes. So, when did it cross over? When does it go from anti-government extremism to Big Brother is watching extremism? Is it weird that this all feels too easy? But then, there's evidence written from a victim's perspective. No, not from a 4chan post or a Reddit comment. In fact, it's an actual documented memoir that is available on YouTube. The memoir is called Run, Hide, Repeat. The podcast contains 5 episodes, which, in total, runs close to 4 hours in length. And as the description states, it's 1971, and Ruth Dawkins is going through a messy divorce and fears for the future of her young children, Pauline and Ted. Pauline Dawkins' childhood was marked by unexplained events, a sense of unseen menace, and secretive moves to new cities with no warning. When Pauline was a young adult, her mother finally told her what they were running from: organized crime, secret police, and double lives. For once, we finally get a full constructed story of gang stalking that isn't just a quick paragraph about being microwaved by the CIA. Her mother suffered abuse at the hands of a powerful husband, a man who was a dominant force in the business world. And with this power came abuse and drinking. Eventually they would divorce, and Warren was only allowed the slightest amount of time to visit his kids, all with strict supervision by the mother. Pauline describes early on in her memoir. He complained that he wanted to see more of them, but they could never tell if it was because he missed his children or if because he viewed it as losing his property. Pauline discusses that after the divorce, her mother would seek help from a reverend. He and his wife would help her mother move on, become independent, and the reverend would even show up as a father figure for the kids, all while being happily married himself. But soon, Pauline's mother began to become paranoid. They would also be forced to go on random